Welcome, everybody, to this week's edition of Inside the GM Studio, podcast all about the tabletop RPG hobby. I am your host, Matt.
And I am David.
And another week that has gone by with no games to be had.
Yeah.
But one thing did happen. My beloved co-host, my brother in Gygax, has turned another year older, recently had a birthday, so I thought, for this episode, we just get to know David a little bit.
Okay.
I came up with some questions. I actually wrote these myself. Some of them I found were kind of like other DM questions online that'll get down into like the general questions about DMing. But the general questions up top here, I wrote pretty much just for you. So I hope all of you out there enjoy this, just to get to know David a little bit. And we will start with David.
Yeah.
When did you game master your first session, and how did it go?
Wow. I don't know that I have like an exact date, but I think it was 12, and it was with my younger brother Jason and this kind of like surrogate family member of mine who everybody calls Poofs, but back then he was just Sean. He was my dad's girlfriend's younger brother at the time. So he's not ostensibly, technically he's my younger brother Robert and Adam's uncle, but no relation to me.
Mm.
So because they're my half brothers, so they have the same mom, and it's his sister. So like most things when you're that age, you don't really have a frame of reference. So I think we were just excited to play, and the whole concept was so novel that I didn't really know how it should go. You know, I had only played D&D maybe a handful of times up to that point, and so I didn't really have much of a baseline. So I was just kind of like, okay, I kind of know the rules, and I kind of know how this goes, and it's kind of cool, and we're doing this, but I'm sure comparatively it was probably pretty bad, but I do remember that I didn't fail in the first order of business as a GM, which is to make sure your players are having a good time, because from what I could tell, that it only took a couple of times of us playing for, well, let me say this. I'm pretty sure that my brother and Sean both still play D&D to this day.
Yeah.
So they probably had a nice time. So
I think the very first time I ever attempted to DM, it was for my mom's boyfriend's son at the time. Who was, let's see, I was 14 at the time. Is that when I started playing with you guys? We were like 14?
I think we were freshmen in high school, so yeah, it was
Something like
14
that.
or maybe 15.
So he was probably like around 10, 11. And it was just me and him. I ran it for him. He made a cleric that I tried to level him up to level 5. And then I put him up against some really hard monsters, and I totally fudged the rules and the dice rolls, and I was like, you win, you're such a hero. But I heard much later, after my mom and him broke up, that his kid Sam actually got into D&D real big. So I was like, hey, you know what? I might have had something to do with that. That's kind of nice.
Yeah, it's like I mean, I guess it depends on, I always say it's kind of like a sickness, and once it gets in you, there's no cure for it, right?
It's very true.
You just kind of go like, yeah, I got introduced to this thing, and but strangely, the person that introduced me to D&D, from what I can tell, hasn't played D&D since basically he introduced me to it. Since the last time I played D&D with him, like, which is my uncle Kurt. Like, he introduced me to it, and I played with him and his buddy Josh, like, I don't know, 3 or 4 times, and like they didn't know the rules or anything really. And so it was like, it was fun, but then it was like, the more I learned about it, like, they don't know how to play this game. They don't really know how any of this works. And then, yeah, from what I can tell, like, whatever the last time I played D&D with Kurt was probably the last time he ever played D&D, and that was probably when I was 12 or 13. So, but it just ballooned out from there. Like, my cousin Cody plays with us now, and he got a whole cadre of his friends into it, and I roped you into it, and I'm pretty sure you got a whole cadre of your friends into it.
Yep.
And so it just kind of balloons out that way, this web. But yeah, I was 12, and it was fun, but probably by even just a few years later, standards probably didn't go as well. But you know, you benefit from having players that don't really have anything to measure it against. So
Right. Next question. Do you enjoy being a player or a game master more, and why?
I definitely enjoy running games more than I enjoy playing in games. Um, I think it's just more of a creative temperament. I mean, God, I don't know. Was it until you moved to Ann Arbor? I don't remember you ever running a game when we were playing together, like the first run, when it was like me and you and my brother Jason
I
and my cousin
tried.
Cody and Alex.
We did an AD&D module that I had that I found for free called Assassin's Knot.
Oh
And
yes, I remember
we
that. Like, was that third edition or was it
no, that
AD&D?
was AD&D.
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
And I remember you played a ranger. It was the first time
Mhm.
I ever saw a ranger on paper. And
Paper
that was the
Ranger.
first time that I attempted it. I was probably about 16 or 17,
Yeah, I mean
right
must
before third edition came out, really.
it must have been really um really limited because I felt comfortable pretty quickly that like I don't know about pretty quickly. After we've been playing together for a couple of years, like I think you need to be a player for a while. This was because if I could go back in time and like play D&D for like 5 or 6 years before I became a DM,
Hmm.
then I would definitely prefer that. And there's just so many things that you get banged up trying to learn to run a fucking game that make it so difficult. Um, but ultimately, I do think it's a more rewarding experience if you're as more of a storyteller. I think that's
Yeah.
the reason that I like it more because I'm much more interested in laying out a story and having people engage with that story, especially in a scenario where they have like choices and they can kind of like and you can react to them,
Hmm.
give them challenges. Uh, I'm more interested in that. I'm the guy that wants to know how a magic trick works because I think it is more interesting when you know how it works.
Hmm.
So unequivocally, I mean, I like playing in games, but we've talked about this before. It has to be the right mix of people. It has to be the right person running the game because I've played in so many games where I'm like, like I could do this better. I could run this adventure
Yeah.
better than you. And
It's so disgusting to say, but it's the absolute truth because I feel the same way that there's sometimes just like, God, why are you doing that?
but I'm sure people have run and played in my games
Oh,
where they
sure.
would say, "Oh yeah, that's not how my old DM does it or
Yep.
whatever." And I don't have a baseline. Like you've played with more different people than I've played with,
Hmm.
and there's overlap. Like, um, for instance, do you still play with Jason?
Not right now, no.
Um, but like I've played. Jason joined a couple of games that I was running, and so did Liam, and so did um,
Nick?
Wyatt, and so did Nick. And I'm sure you played with these other people, but I don't have a sense of like where they would like whether they like my style of DMing versus your style of DMing. I mean, they're
Hmm.
pretty similar, so I would imagine that you're like I would be a good surrogate in your absence, but some DMs are they run things very differently than you and I
Hmm.
do. And if you come from one of those styles of GMing, then I can see them playing in my games and being like, "Why are you running it this way? This is not what I want." And but yeah, so it's important to kind of know what it is you want out of a game, and perhaps I don't know, perhaps I'm a control freak, but part of the reason I like to run my own games is because I typically only like to play D&D with people that I get into D&D.
Hmm.
Um, with the few exceptions that I listed, it's like if you vouch for someone at this point because you've been gaming a long time
Hmm.
and you've been running games a long time, if you vouched for somebody as a player, then I would almost certainly let them into my game. But before you started doing that, if you just vouched for someone as a player, as a fellow player with less experience, I probably would have been more dodgy. Um, and similarly, I don't even know that I would, some people, I approach new players with caution. If they're not someone that I said, hey, I think this is a thing that you would like, and this is a thing that we can do together, because then they come into the game with preconceived notions, and I don't want to have to like break those bad habits, like in my game and whatever. Some players are really flexible and they just kind of go with the flow with whatever game they're in. They're like, okay, you're the kind of guy that likes this. You like creative problem solving, and that's the world we're in. You reward that. I'm gonna flow with it. Instead of being like, well, but I'm like a crunchy kind of power gamer. It's like, well, I don't run games like that. Like not really. So, don't know what to tell you. It's like you just kind of get with the program or don't. And so maybe that's an indicator that I'm more of a control freak than some other GMs, but
That's
I
how
don't
I
know.
feel whenever I bring that up, because I have no problem saying that it is a control thing. Uh, I don't know. Maybe it is. Maybe because there are some GMs that I've had that I'm just like, this just isn't my style, and I've quit.
Yeah.
That's why I tell everybody whenever we play online and I play and I have a new person in my group, I say, if you ever have a problem, just let me know. If you don't want to
Mhm.
do this anymore, it's not going to hurt my feelings. You can take off at any time because I've definitely done it to other people, and
Yeah.
I
I,
felt it too.
I've, I try to be really responsive to players, but I think it's the reason being a player allows me to troubleshoot my own games, right? I try to
Mm,
be a very responsive DM. And so when I run in other games that I are falling short, like I'm like, I would address this in my game, right? Like I would have this run in a particular way. And but I don't want to tell anybody how to run their game. Um, they either kind of seek your input and your feedback, or they don't. And if they don't, then it's just kind of they're set on running a game a certain way. I'm not really set on running a game a certain way. That's what I mean, is I don't know if I would call it a control freak thing. I mean, yes,
hmm
I like to have control. I like to have my game under control. Um, but that's a wide, like there's a lot of adaptability in there. And typically when I'm frustrated, when I play in others people's games and I think to myself, I could run this better, it's not that they're doing a bad job. It's just it's not meeting the my expectations or what it is that I want.
hmm
And they have it like set on that. They have it set at a certain um like the dials are set in a certain way, and I'm like, I could run this better because I wouldn't set them so hard. I would allow more
Right.
flexibility. And so it's really a frustration from a player standpoint of like the first order of business, like I said at the top of the show or whatever, is to make sure everybody's having fun. And it's like, I'm playing in your game and I'm not having as much fun as I should. And I'm noticing that you're not really adjusting as we go. And it's
hmm
kind of making it more difficult for me to enjoy the game because you have a very specific idea of what the game needs to be, and like you said, it doesn't fit with my idea of what the game needs to be, and so that leaves a sour taste in my mouth. And I try as much as possible to not be that sort of GM, um, within certain parameters, right? Like I'm not going
hmm
to be as flexible on the rules, right? I'm not going to let you undermine the kind of the actual mechanics and rule set. Those are much more firm. Um, and so, but that in itself can be something that players find to be a turnoff, where it's
hmm
like, well, you're so by the book, and I'm sure that is something that a criticism someone could level upon me and would be accurate. It's like, well, you just kind of really, you don't like a lot of interpretation of the rules, and I'm like, that's true. I like things to kind of be definitive and to be consistent because I don't want to keep having to adjust everything as I go.
Right.
Um, Adjustments are for stories and characters and themes and stuff like that. And like when I have to adjust the mechanics on top of that, it just feels arduous.
This one's a little more general. You don't have to list off everything. But what games or D&D editions have you played, and what do you like about each one?
Oh wow. I don't know that I could list all of the games that I've played.
Exactly. I didn't expect you to.
Um, Especially if you're just counting like one shots and all that stuff. But I could probably come pretty close. Uh, so in the D&D realm, I played the original edition of Dungeons and Dragons. I think just from the starter set, um, or whatever rules are in that book that we were trying to figure out before, that one that Bob gave me, the rules compendium or
Yeah.
the rules cyclopedia.
The
I
Purple
think
Book.
yeah, I think those rules are the first edition rules. I could be wrong though.
They are first
Um,
edition rules.
But are they first edition D&D or first edition
No,
AD&D?
for first edition, they were the very first AD&D rules.
Okay. So then I've played the starter set for Dungeons and Dragons. I've played the AD&D unknowingly. I guess I didn't realize I was ever playing AD&D first edition. A little bit. I've played extensively. What, for five 5 years or so? We played AD&D second edition.
Hmm.
I played third edition or 3.5, whatever you want to say, a smattering of times, maybe
Hmm.
three or four. Um, I played fourth edition through its entire run from, well, not its entire run. I think you got me into it after a couple. It had been out a couple of years. Um,
Probably like around 2005, 2006, you got into it.
and when did it
I
come
think it
out?
came out in 2004.
Okay, did it? Because I thought 2003 was 3.5. So I was
I
thinking
could be
like
wrong.
2007, 2008, 2009 is when it came out. Either way, long time ago now. I played that for most of its life. We switched to we switched to fifth edition when it was in its beta, when it was still D&D Next, and we played that through its whole run. I have yet to play the 2024 D&D. On top of that, obviously, we play in a Barbarians of Lemuria game.
Hmm.
Lemuria, I think that's how you say it. Barbarians of Lemuria game. Am enjoying that. I have played Call of Cthulhu at least on half a dozen occasions. We played Vampire the Masquerade extensively in high school. I played Rifts for like a minute or two. Played some cyberpunk games, most notably Shadowrun, maybe on a
Hmm.
handful of occasions. Have play tested or beta tested or whatever you one-shotted Fabula Ultima, Final Fantasy 14. Trying to think of what's another notable game that I've played. I can't think of any other that I played extensively. VTM, all the editions that I listed of D&D, but nothing else past more.
Hackmaster.
Hackmaster, I guess, if you
Can't
want to
forget
include that.
Hackmaster.
Hackmaster, yeah, we played that for a while, like a year or
Yeah.
two. And then offshoots of the World of Darkness. I guess saying VTM, it's like we kind of played the World of Darkness because we had character Matt's character was a mage, and so we
Yep.
used those rules for that
Cody
his
played
character.
werewolf.
Cody played Cody played a werewolf, yeah. But I'm trying to think if there's anything else that I played for more than just a few sessions, like Shadowrun and stuff like that. I've mostly stuck with medieval fantasy role-playing games, mostly because I like those worlds, and I like the themes that typically come up with those games. I really like the World of Darkness's kind of theatrical, more cinematic style of storytelling when it's done right from a horror aspect and a personal character development standpoint. It's a game that I really need to have the right players for. I need to have players that are more into kind of existential horror, that are more into kind of like acting and character development, who are self-motivated to kind of like have their own goals, but are good at like mystery and kind of picking up on breadcrumbs and are into a more sandbox kind of open world adventure that's less shoehorned.
Hmm.
That's a very specific type of player, but when I get it, I enjoy those games. I don't know that we ran several sessions or perhaps even several chapters of VTM that I really enjoyed, maybe even entire stories, but I was never really satisfied with any of the three chronicles that we ran. In D&D, I'm much more comfortable with it. I would say overall, the fifth edition is the best rule set. Although I do still enjoy some of the kind of dungeon crawly hack and slash crunchiness of second edition. I wouldn't want to run a whole campaign, but I think it could be fun for like an OSR one shot or three
Hmm.
session thing. To kind of go back and have things be old school. But Barbarians of Lemura captures the spirit of that without being super rules cumbersome, which is why I like it. Call of Cthulhu, I like. I've mentioned this in the show before, where it's good investigation and stuff like that. And I just don't think it's suited well to a long form campaign, and you have to
Hmm.
have again the kind of players that can kind of recognize that this is not an exercise in like combat mechanics. Like this
Yeah.
isn't like a fight bad guys kind of thing. It's investigation. And so yeah, there's been a few other games that I've kind of like tinkered around with, but none of them really stick out. Can you think of any that we've played together or even talked about playing that hit that front?
Oh, geez. No, I think you listed everything that we've played together, and like I ran, other than other one shots smattering here and there, like
Hmm.
Daggerheart, and like you said, Fabula Ultima.
Yeah, I played in Daggerheart with you once or twice too, I
Yeah.
think. And
No, not a lot though. Uh, no,
I
all the
play.
long campaigns like Hackmaster, VTM, and D&D were our long running ones,
Yeah.
and I
I
think
think I
that was
played a
it.
couple of I think I played a couple of instances of that game Dread too, but again, that's like a storytelling game. It's not even really a
Yeah,
role-playing game.
yeah. I
Um,
feel that's the same thing as like Ten Candles, and I've played Ten Candles before, and that's just a one night thing.
yeah.
That's just like a night game, and that's all it is.
Yeah, you're not really looking to have like a an ongoing story that carries over. Oh,
Hmm.
we also played for a couple of months. We played the D20 version of the Star Wars game, and
That's right.
we played the proprietary Dice Star Wars
Yep,
game,
the Fantasy Flight.
um, the Fantasy Flight one. Neither of which I was into.
Nope.
Star Wars, just you want to like it, but it just doesn't ever really feel like Star Wars.
When our friend Nate Higley ran the Star Wars D20 game, I had high hopes for that, and then
Hmm.
that kind of fizzled out.
Yeah.
And then I started playing it with Rob, Janet, Randy, and Jason here in Ann Arbor, and
Hmm.
it was doing good for a while. Like I swear, we they leveled up a few times. We played a good couple games, but after a while, just like every other time, it fizzled out. People lost the interest, and even I was starting to lose interest. And when the Fantasy Flight one came out, I was like, "This is going to be it. This is finally it. This is a game made for Star Wars. This is going to be great." Yeah, no, not
It's
really.
it's just it's difficult. First of all, I just don't know whatever reason it is, but it's hard to keep people's attention long term for a Star Wars game.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I think it's there's too many expectations about what it's going to be because there's these really canonical movies, right?
Hmm.
So it either ends up feeling a lot like D&D, or the like I'll say the Fantasy Flight one, like when you ran it, the texture of the game felt very much Star Wars.
Hmm.
Like you described things in a very cinematic way, which is the way it needs to be. It was very much felt like Star Wars, but when it came to the mechanics of the game, they just bog everything down so fucking quickly
Yeah.
that it's just like it's overly specific when it doesn't need to be, and it's overly vague when it needs to be specific.
Yeah.
And so it just suffered from that, and so I never really. But again, I've never been a huge Star Wars fan.
Well,
I'd more to love to play the Blade Runner RPG that you
yeah.
have.
Right. I know. I still haven't played that. That's one I'm gonna have to make sure that we play sometime.
Hmm.
I will run that for us one day because I still haven't played it. But I will say I will not call myself a massive Star Wars fan, but I'm a pretty big Star Wars fan. I have a lot of Star Wars knowledge. And in the rules for Fantasy Flight, at least back when Edge of the Empire first came out, which was the first book, first setting, if you want to call it, they say at the end of your first adventure, they should have their own starship. I was like, all right, fine, no problem. Well, now the problem is that as soon as they get, and this happened back in the D21 as well, and this is the first problem that Nate encountered when we were playing with him. As soon as they get their first starship, they can go wherever the fuck they want, unless you really make it a point to you can go here, please go here, don't go anywhere else. But I don't do that sort of thing. So
Hmm?
as soon as they got their starship, they were like, let's go here, let's go here, let's go here. And if you don't
It's
have the right knowledge of where they're going, it gets really tough.
it's because it's not like it's just the format of Star Wars is cinematic.
Yeah.
It's meant to be a plot arc of a hero's journey.
Mhm.
And I just don't believe that a tabletop RPG that's like open world sandbox character driven really goes with the spirit of it as much. And so I suspect there's just a mismatch there. I played some other like I want to say I played some other like sci-fi kind of based, not Rifts and not Shadowrun, but some other kind of sci-fi.
Oh, Titan's Grave.
Titan's Grave, yeah.
Yeah,
It's like a sci fantasy.
yeah,
So yeah, that was okay. I thought that was
yeah. We played like 5 or 6,
yeah.
I think, 5 or 6 games of that.
Yeah, 4 or 5 in my recollection, but yeah, it was like a handful. Yeah, that was fun. Is I like the mechanics of that game, but I just the world felt a little.
Mm,
It felt like almost overdone for how little you touch the world, and that's what
right.
was weird about it for me. So, but yeah, that was so it's just varying degrees. I think D&D is kind of the classic game, and so it makes it the most easy to keep together. Um, and I will say, really, as much as it D&D is not my favorite game based on like my preferences as a GM, it's certainly my favorite game if you look at like, just what I've played. Like
Right.
I've
Yeah. Yeah.
played it more, right? And
Hmm.
if that's your favorite game, then yeah, D&D is my favorite game. Um, just like whatever type of ice cream you get and eat the most frequently, that's
Yeah.
your favorite, even if you don't say it is. But I like other game systems more and varying degrees less. Oh, we also played the Conan D20,
Oh,
the
yep.
not a great system. Um,
Yeah. I was never a big fan of third edition D20 system that much.
yeah, and so what I will say though is that the D&D mechanic over the years, especially since in recent years in the recent edition, really does balance the best of mechanics. It balances easy to understand, user introductory, like player friendly, and provides enough nuance and sophistication where is needed. The
Mm,
fifth edition rule set is probably the best rule set of any RPG overall, like for just any given person, like generically, it's the vanilla ice
hmm.
cream of rule sets. Like no,
Yep.
very few people have very few people would say that vanilla is their favorite flavor of ice cream, but very few people that I've ever met say they hate vanilla ice cream.
Right.
They're like,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just kind of boring or whatever, right? It's like, and so it does that very well, and I suspect that that's the reason that it's so popular and the reason it's easier to keep games together because,
Hmm.
maybe if you're playing the Conan RPG, maybe like you got 1 or 2 players that are really jamming on it, one player that really hates it, and one player that's agnostic about it. That group's not staying together. They're just not. So,
Yep. Oh, and I did some research here. You called it. I keep screwing this up. So third edition came out in 2000. 3.5 came out in 2003.
that's what I
Fourth
thought.
edition came out in 2008. You were correct.
Okay, yeah, I was gonna say I thought it was 7 or 8 when it came out. And then yeah, because it was 2015 when I think the beta for
Nope, it was
fifth edition.
2013 because fifth edition came out in 2014.
Yeah, fifth edition came out. Oh, yeah, you're right. I thought it came out in 2015, and that the beta was like a year before. So yeah, I
Yeah.
guess it was 13 because yeah, I was still living in Iowa back then.
Yeah.
That's how long ago that was. So,
All right. Situational question.
ooh,
Your characters arrive in a tavern and talk to the innkeeper. In their conversation, the innkeeper insults one of the characters, so the player of the character tries to attack the innkeeper, claiming it's what their character would do. What would your response be?
I'm the GM or I'm a player?
You're the GM.
I'm the GM. What would my Okay, first of all, you don't need to give me an excuse why your character is doing it. I just need to know that you're serious because
Mhm.
players fuck around too much. Like, I grab his fucking hand, I stab it to the bar, and you're like, really? That's what you do? And they go, no, no, dude, I'm just fucking around. And you go like, oh, okay, well, try not to say that you do stuff because I don't know if that's really what you're doing. I let that scenario play out to its logical conclusion, and it will derail the game, and everybody will not have very much fun with it, and they will learn a lesson about what kind of game that I'm running.
I had a feeling that's what your answer would be
Yeah, it's
because it's
just
very close to my answer.
there needs to be consequences in the world. If
Yes.
you want to go, if you want to murder it's like I'm gonna fight him. Like, okay, you kill him, he's dead. Now what? Like, that's I don't even need some rolls from you. I mean, maybe I would have them just for whatever, but most people, like if you attack an innkeeper, he's not gonna fight you. He's going to run away if he can and plead for help and yell for the authorities as you're trying to cut him apart. Uh, because generally speaking, that's not it. I don't necessarily need it to be realistic, but there needs to be kind of a logical stream of consequences. And moreover, as a kind of tangent, not really for the player in question. That is important, but really what you want to do is communicate to the other players that if this is the sort of behavior you're going to allow in the party, then let's just prepare for the whole session to be all about this one player's
Yeah.
fuck up and like doing a bunch of damage control, and let's see how much fun that is for the rest of you. And because frankly, to get behavior um from a certain player that you want, the best weapon at your disposal is not in-game consequences. It's typically peer pressure.
Hmm.
To get the other players to be like, dude, quit, like just fucking stop it, right? Like we're trying to get some information from this guy. Like if you don't want to talk to him, then let my character talk to him. I have good charisma or whatever. Like that sort of peer pressure is much more effective than you swiftly consequencing a character because sometimes they might just be fine to take this shenanigans down its logical terminus because frankly they probably like that at least a little bit because players that behave that way are typically they're it's mean to say, but they're typically attention whores. They typically want the attention fixated on them. This is why they're
Hmm.
doing that. And so they're the opposite of the watcher player who does very little, observes all the other characters, and then reacts absolutely only when necessary. That can be frustrating for different things, but you can't say that that's at least not like some thoughtfulness and deliberation on the part of the player. So the problem player might very well just be like, fine, yeah, like if he wants to fuck around, then yeah, let's fuck around. Like, it's like the whole game is centered on them. You need their peers to be like, dude, fucking quit it. Like
Yeah.
we're not having this. So anyway, it's just an aside.
All right. What styles, genres, approaches do you prefer and which do you refuse to use? Such as like story driven versus sandbox, free reign styles, horror, mystery, etc.
Oh yeah, wow, I don't know that. And we talk so much about fantasy stuff on here. We don't really get a chance to talk much about other genres. But as I've said, I really like kind of existential horror
Mm,
as a genre. I haven't run it enough to know how well it plays out in um in a role-playing game
mhm.
situation. I mean, we
And
played
I
a
think
few
the most
sessions.
you've had is supernatural horror with VTM.
Yeah.
And we know
Um
that works out pretty well.
yeah, and I try to incorporate some more like existential horror elements in there. But I like cosmic horror quite a bit too. Which they're very closely tied together,
Mm,
existential horror, cosmic horror, whatever I mean, two sides of the same coin, really. Um, but I have not been shy about the fact that I like sword and sorcery style games that are pulpy and fast paced and have just enough sophistication to kind of get the job done so that the characters can have like enough differences between them. I tend to not like games with super rules light systems that flatten out the characters where everybody just kind of feels like a different sprite with the same powers.
hmm.
So I'm not really big on that. Uh, I don't typically fare too well in games that are strongly role playing based,
Hmm.
where characters get really into the acting and like they get really into like in dialogue exchanges. I think a little of that goes a long way, but I do jam on games that reward good mystery. From just a stylistic standpoint, I love mysteries. I love where characters have to be clever and investigate and kind of peel different layers to an onion. I really jam on that sort of stuff, but I think that's more in recent years. I used to be more kind of high energy, high octane. Um, the biggest thing for me is to not have a rule set that weighs down whatever pacing you want to go for your game. A mystery investigation game can be much more slow paced than a sword and sorcery or even kind of epic fantasy or even cyberpunk style game. So I'm a big proponent of the rules fitting the world, where a mechanic feels at home in that game and unique to that game. And the more of those you can have, like the hope and the dark side, light side points, and the I think it's the Fantasy Flight one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Star Wars. I don't like that game, but that rule set fits well, and
Mm-hmm.
I really appreciated that they seem to have some thoughtfulness put into that mechanic. So I would say that the few things that I have that are like a lot of things that I don't typically like steampunk sort of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
This is a departure for me and Matt. Matt is much more keen on steampunk stuff. I
Mm-hmm.
find it just gets too messy when you start introducing elements that feel super modern. Like you're getting too close to kind of like science fiction, and it's like I don't know. Sometimes I don't know how to wrap my head around a world that has like tons of airships and trains powered by genies and extensive infrastructure. It's like, okay, you have all this, but you still fight people with swords, and but some people have guns, and then
Mm-hmm.
there's magic, but then there's also like this other. It's difficult for me to have the world feel cohesive, I guess. And so I tend not to fuck with it, not because I don't like that genre, actually, because when it comes to literature and TV shows and shit, even I tend to like that genre. I think it's kind of quirky and fun. But I always just kind of have the problems of like when I watch and read stuff like that, I go like, how does it work? What about this? And but I can put those things in the back of my head when I'm consuming something. But when I'm involved in it and running it, and I need to kind of know operationally
Mm-hmm.
how things play out, again, it doesn't seem like the best use of my mental bandwidth in a game.
But you're saying you're open to play in it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll play in just about
Hmm.
anything.
Okay. I've
But
always
yeah,
kind
like that.
of I've always kind of held off with stuff like that when I knew you were going to be playing because I didn't know if you would get into it. But maybe I'll try.
It probably just depends on the particular flavor of
Mm-hmm.
it. If it's something, it probably depends on how steampunky it is. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
if we're talking kind of like League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, then yeah, maybe I'm into that kind of the more modern Sherlock Holmes. Like the ones with Guy Ritchie in them are very steampunky.
Mm-hmm.
But when you start getting into kind of like the high fantasy world blended with steampunk stuff,
Mm-hmm.
so somewhere between like the super high fantasy blended with modern technology and the kind of more alternate history where maybe things just kind of developed differently, a la League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. Like somewhere between those two strata, I'm comfortable with. Like some his Dark Materials maybe is a kind of a good example.
Okay. When you sit down to write your adventures or get into a creative space, what do you usually read, watch, listen to? Just get into the creative headspace.
This is going to sound pretty atypical, but I pull inspiration from a lot of things that are not genre related. I don't really read a lot of genre fiction. I read mostly literary fiction, and that has a big benefit because I try to make my characters in my games, especially the more prominent NPCs, kind of like grounded and consistent. And literary fiction is a lot better at that. And when it comes to movies, like I'm a voracious consumer of pretty much all genres of movies and incorporate of different aspects of those stories into my games. But it probably depends on what I'm running or what leg of the uh, adventure or campaign or whatever we're coming up on. If we're coming up with something a little more investigation heavy, I might watch, you know, some sort of like old Agatha Christie movies or something like that, or
Mm-hmm.
old Masterpiece Theater, Columbo. Things that really don't seem like they're related to the genre all that much. But it's like I want to incorporate good mystery elements, so I go to kind of the good things that, I'm watching old film noirs and shit if I want to tell a cyberpunk story that's kind of in the Blade Runner vein or
Mm-hmm.
something. I'm watching old noirs like from the 40s and 50s, not really like genre specific things, precisely because running D&D or running any kind of genre game is already going to be kind of tropey and cliche and rely a lot on stereotypes to begin with. So I'm always kind of looking for things that might be that um, outside that genre specific thing that can add a little bit more life into the writing of a scene or a scenario. And sometimes the confluence of two things can be really awesome, right? Like look at Firefly. Like Firefly is like technically like a sci-fi show is what people
Mm-hmm.
say, but it's really a western, right?
It's a
Because it's
total
just got
Western.
it's got all the trappings of a western. Or if you look at this is really interesting. I actually just learned this the other day. One of my favorite movies ever is Unforgiven. It's a cowboy movie from the early 90s directed by Clint Eastwood. And if you haven't seen it and you like westerns, then go watch it right this second. Um, and it's influenced by a lot of stuff that came before and has influenced a lot of stuff that's come since. Most notably, another one of my favorite movies, which again is a superhero movie but really is a western, is Logan. Logan is a fucking western. Like it's
Mm-hmm.
just a western true and true, but it's a comic book movie. This pulling of different things into different genres can be a very great thing. Like when you cross pollinate. But I just learned recently that Unforgiven was made into a samurai movie like 10 years after, which I thought was really apropos because so many of those old westerns, the Man with No Name trilogy, for instance, are all pulled from old samurai movies, most notably Akira Kurosawa's. Like The Magnificent Seven is a remake of
Mm-hmm.
Seven Samurai, and Yojimbo they remade into A Fistful of Dollars, and a few other ones that are just really notable because there's a lot of commonalities between samurai culture and Western culture, like the Wild West and samurai. So
Mm-hmm.
I try to like pull on these things and kind of introduce elements that are not necessarily genre specific because like if you're playing in any particular genre, it's very well worn what it is that you are going to be incorporating into a certain thing. It usually the other way around. Like it's not like I'm anticipating or preparing to write. Um, and if I watch or read something genre specific, then it will make me want to, right? Like if I watch Conan the Barbarian or something, then I will want to play Barbarians of Lemuria.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's not like I would watch Conan in preparation for. Like if anything, I would watch something probably completely different or read something completely different to kind of get my brain off the one track of the genre beats.
Okay. Let's see. Last one of the general questions here. What is one piece of advice? If you only were able to give one piece of advice to a new dungeon master, what would it be?
Don't over prep.
That's a good one. That's a
Yeah.
damn good one.
Oh, also maybe, if not, don't over prep. Depending on what their particular problem is, it would probably be don't over prep and don't worry so much. Like, which is another way of just saying make sure your players have a nice time.
See, there you
But
go.
they're all kind of in the same arena. So,
Okay. All right. We're going to get into some general questions about DMing in
okay,
David's DMing style.
all right.
What D&D homebrew content should we all allow, or should I or you allow in your D&D game?
And
In your opinion?
the potion is a bonus action now. That's officially a rule now, right? Because
Yeah,
everybody.
it's an official rule now.
Okay, if it's a rule now, then I won't say that. And I also don't know about the use object, but the homebrew rule that I think is removes the removes anxiety from the players the most would either be one, the use object, which would be don't fret too much about whether your player drew a sword on this turn and also wants to
Yes.
open a
Yeah.
door on this turn. Like, just kind of go with what makes sense. You'll have a good feeling. Like if the player like, oh, I draw two swords and I rush up and I stab a guy with each one of them, and then I sheath both of them on my back and I pull my bow off my back and I retreat and knock an arrow, and it's like, okay, this is starting to get to be a bit much now, right?
Yeah.
Like, and like, I kick the table over on in the process. It's like, okay, that's, but I would generally say that the most popular homebrew and the one that alleviates players' anxiety the most, and that new GM should incorporate, is one that I do not incorporate and do not endorse at all, which is just get rid of encumbrance.
Yeah.
Just get rid of it.
Ooh.
Like, people don't want to bother with fucking weight, and it's
Yeah.
stupid. Just, again, you're better off to just kind of go with like what makes sense. Try to think of volumetrically. That's a better way to think about it. You have a backpack that's 1 square foot. What
Yep.
can reasonably fit in the fucking backpack? Don't, like, you're not going to roll up a carpet and stick it in there with a 10-foot pole and like a candelabra or
How
whatever.
much shit
right?
can you hang on your belt before your pants fall down?
Yeah, just kind of go with what makes sense there, and just go like, okay, like maybe you're not over encumbered in the way that it like impedes your movement or whatever. But it's just you can't put the whole statue in your backpack,
Right.
It's like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Isn't there a way I could carry it like on my back? No, it's a statue. It weighs 500 pounds and it's 6.5 feet tall. Like, you're not taking it with you, right?
Yeah.
But what if we need it? What if we needed to anchor something where it's like, so yeah, just get rid of encumbrance, and your players will get everything but the kitchen sink thrown on their back. But frankly, the game's not meant for realism. It's kind of, frankly, even if you had a backpack, like a normal rucksack on your back that you could carry comfortably while traveling, and it wasn't overpacked with stuff, like everything fit in there, you're not fighting with a sword against somebody in a competent
Yeah.
manner with that on your back. Like, you're just not.
Right.
Like, so realism's already out the door. And why not just go the full thing and just either give your players a portable hole, a bag of holding, or just say fuck it with the goddamn
Yeah.
encumbrance.
I think inventory management went out the window with 4th edition. Like
Yeah,
3rd
it's just-
edition was so crunchy and so trying to have such realism that like they even had a rule of, like you brought up many times, like the flat-footed rule, but there was also a rule of dropping your bag in order to do something and all this. In 4th edition, I think that's when they first started like, inventory doesn't really matter, but we're Dungeons and Dragons and we kind of created this sort of thing, so we're going to keep it for now.
Okay, again, I've brought this up before, and I don't know. I'm pretty sure I invented this rule, which is like a halfway between, which is what I call the sundry item rule. So if anybody that hasn't listened to a previous episode, I like this homebrew rule for a variety of reasons. But I'll tell you what the rule is, and I'll tell you why I like it. So basically, the things that count toward the amount of weight your character can carry are his armors, his weapons, and that's pretty much it. His clothes, I guess, if you wanted to count those weights. Beyond that, if the player has a strength of 10, then they can carry 5 times their weight before they're encumbered. That's 50 pounds. Okay. So then you go, okay, here's the thing: is you have armor that's 10 pounds and a sword that's 5 pounds. So that's 15 pounds of the 50 pounds. You have clothes that weigh 2 pounds. That's 17 pounds. You have a belt pouch or whatever. So a few things that are tangible things that you can count on. And let's just say it adds up to about a total of 20 pounds of the 50 pounds you can carry. Then you say, okay, those things go on your character sheet, and you definitely have them. And you definitely always have them, because it's not like you suddenly have different clothes, right? You're not wearing a tunic, but then you have a tunic, right? Like I didn't have a tunic before, but now I do, or whatever. Then beyond that, you just take about a quarter of, or let's call it 20%, 25%, establish some number of weight that the characters like have, but is not defined. So let's say in this case, it's another 20 pounds. So you have 20 more pounds of gear that you're carrying on top of the 15 pounds that you are carrying with your weapons and armor and everything, or 20 pounds or whatever. So you're 40 of 50 pounds, let's say. So what this does is it means that equipment is not defined, and you have 10 pounds of equipment that you can accumulate before you're encumbered. And the 20 pounds could be it could literally be anything. And anytime you want a particular item, You either do a strength check because you're strong enough to carry enough stuff, so the likelihood that you'll have something is good, or you do an intelligence check, which is you were smart enough to pack it. This check should be relatively like low, like not maybe just shy of moderate. So maybe not super easy like a 10 DC, but maybe more like an 11 or a 12 DC or something, right? And what this does is it allows players to basically potentially have anything that they want on their characters. It allows them to not run amok with like accumulating shit but still have some bandwidth to accumulate things that they want to accumulate throughout the adventure, and to have a fair degree of confidence that somebody in the party will have any given item. You have 4 characters, someone needs a torch, and out of the 4 of you, if all 4 of you fail on finding a torch in your backpack, I mean, that's unfortunate, but not likely. And even if it does happen, then it's like, just get a little creative. That's not so bad. But it allows you to be like, okay, I'm not carrying all the way up to my capacity. I have the things that that are important to me, my weapons and my armor and my clothing and stuff. For a thief, it might be their thieves' tools, and for a cleric, it might be their holy symbols. It would depend on the class, but yeah, it's a good middle ground. But apparently, my players hate it. They don't want to do that. They want to have everything itemized on their sheet. But I don't want players to take advantage of the fact that they don't have to worry about encumbrance at all, because then they just accumulate everything in the fucking kitchen sink, and then they have this giant laundry list of shit that they have, and it's like, and they don't keep track of it. They just like, or whatever, and they forget they have it, and then their character sheet gets all unwieldy. It's just terrible. So, but I like that rule. I would introduce it as a house rule that doesn't throw out the baby with the bathwater, so to speak.
I agree. What percentage of the D&D rules should one dungeon master have memorized?
What percentage of the D&D rules should a dungeon master have memorized? Memorized insofar as that you know what the rule says exactly, word for word.
Playable.
100%.
Okay.
You should have enough of an idea of what any given rule says that you should be comfortable making a ruling on it, or unless the actual literal words are important, like the description of a spell, for instance. I don't know if that falls under the umbrella of the rules, but you should know how spells work. And you should know kind of like, what an AoE is, and like what the difference between
a line, a blast, a burst.
Sure. So functional knowledge should be 100%, if ideally. For competency, at least 70%. You need to know more than every player at the table. That's the best metric.
Yeah.
You need to know more than every player at the table, and not by a little bit, by a decent amount. The older you get and the more you play with experienced players, the more difficult that'll be. And when you get to like run games with people that also run games, which is what I do. Like Cody is a player of mine, but he runs games, and Matt is a player of mine and he runs games. And so this actually, the reason that at low levels you need to know more than every player is because you need to establish yourself as an authority to adjudicate the rules. You are the referee, and you need to know your shit in order to make rulings and not create arguments with your players. So they need to have confidence in you that when you make a ruling, it is correct. At a certain threshold, most of your players know the rules well enough that there doesn't seem to be any confusion, and there is often just going to be what you would call a ruling, like something is ambiguous and everybody kind of agrees that it's ambiguous. And you can either just make a ruling, and because your players know that we all know the rules well, then they'll just respect that ruling. But more often than not, what I do is I just discuss it with my players. Like, what would you guys think? Because here's kind of what I'm thinking. And generally speaking, if you have an equal understanding of the rules to people, you have a tendency to kind of arrive at the same conclusion, or pretty close to it, unless you're Matt. Matt just likes whatever you think first, because he doesn't want to go back and forth about it.
Fuck like, no.
He's like, whatever you think first. And then like Cody will be like, I don't know, I can see maybe it going. And Matt's like, no, just whatever you thought first. That was right.
Yeah, I can think of a few things that you should really have down. Action economy. You should
Yep.
know how the action economy works. Spells, especially because usually 3 out of 5 players don't know
Hmm.
how spells work.
Yep.
Immunities, vulnerabilities, and resistances, and movement. Movement, definitely. If your game has movement in it, know that shit.
Yeah, it's well, the thing is the irony is actually probably the more sophisticated your rule set, the higher the percent actually needs to be. If you're playing in a real rules light system, you can get away with kind of not knowing all
Hmm.
that much about the rules. Like ICRPG, you could just kind of like, yeah, this is how it works, and
Yeah.
um, but it's easier to learn all of those rules. So,
Yes.
but there's less interplay. The more rules light a system is, the less interplay there is between rules, and the crunchier a system is, the more interplay there is. So it's more incumbent upon you to understand the rules, the more sophisticated they are, because a minor misunderstanding of one rule can have devastating effects on the rest of the game. So,
True. All right, last question. And
last
it
one.
is not gaming related. What do you enjoy outside of gaming?
What do I enjoy outside of gaming? Wow, yeah, this is really not gaming related. I like
Yeah.
to play other games. No,
Yeah.
actually,
Video,
like
well,
beyond
kind of because you oh, I don't know how much chess do you play these days?
probably more than just about anything. I play chess.
And do you
Mostly.
still have poker night? Do you still play poker?
I don't play poker anymore. I
Yeah.
love poker, but since I stopped working at the cigar shop where they had Friday night poker, well, I should say I hosted Friday night poker, and they probably still do it. I haven't played in a poker game since. I only like playing in home games. I don't like playing online. So,
Mm.
and strangely, I don't really like sitting down to play chess with somebody. I just kind of play on my phone with them.
I know it's weird that I brought up two games when it was supposed to be not gaming related, but it is other games outside of tabletop games.
I mean, men like games. Men like things that are competitive. But yeah, it's
True.
not tabletop gaming. I also like pool a lot. I shoot pool a lot. So not so much these days. But over the course of my life, it's probably been the thing that I've done the most. Um, Beyond that, I enjoy movies. I've been no like I haven't been shy about communicating that. So I watch a lot of movies, and I write fiction, screenplays, essays, stuff like that. And then if Matt's around, sometimes we'll go bowling. I like bowling all right too.
Yeah, I was gonna say before when you were talking about whenever David speaks, and the way that I talk about how David is with movies, that he's a real cinemaphile, and that sometimes he'll poo-poo on some things, but not really, because thinking about it, there's been plenty of times that you and I have been hanging out, and like I'll be flipping through stuff to watch, and you'd be like, "Ooh, Critters," or "Ooh, Puppet Master," and you'll just be like, "Yeah, that sounds pretty sweet right now."
It's yeah, that's the thing
Or
is
even
it's like
like Pee Wee's Big Adventure, you're just like, "Oh yeah, that'd be pretty fun right now."
I love movies and um I certainly like talking about movies that I love more than I like bagging on movies that I hate. And actually one has to do with the other is like the more the more one learns to appreciate films, I think, or literature or anything, the more frustrated you are when something doesn't deliver on its promise to you. Um, and so like I just don't gravitate toward things that I know I'm not going to enjoy. And but it's not like I mean, yeah, I have some pretty highbrow tastes when it comes to film in particular. But one of the things that I've kind of been on a jag about lately when it comes to film is that films just really aren't fun anymore. And
Hmm.
I think that's really sad that like some movies are fun. I just watched The Mummy like a couple weeks ago. The fucking movie is fun. I mean, it's got a lot of plot holes in it, and the CGI is terrible, and the acting's not great, but it's just fun. It's a good
Yeah.
version of what it is, you know. And um, too many things now either seem to take themselves too seriously, or they're. It's like I don't know. I just think comedy is dead. They just remade The Naked Gun, so maybe that's not true, but I hear it's pretty good. But
I know
um,
I haven't seen it either, but I've heard really good things.
yeah, but it's just like I just don't. Some things just aren't my cup of tea, right? Like I don't like the Fast and the Furious movies, and so
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
I'm just kind of a snob about them. But generally speaking, my gripe is against not any particular genre or any particular idea. It's things that things that just seem to want to. give a middle finger to the whole idea of like what good storytelling is, because frankly, as we've discussed on this show, with running a variety of different games, it really doesn't matter. Like there are genre beats to certain things, but good storytelling is good storytelling. There's a reason that like fucking Shakespeare has endured, and you can set that shit pretty much anywhere with any different scenario or whatever, and it holds up. It's because it's just a well-told story. And so things I get irked about is especially things that have potential to be a good story, and they just kind of like, well, I don't need to follow any semblance of like what constitutes a good story, and it seems hostile to me as the viewer. This goes to my general through thread as a GM. It's like if if you're playing in my game and you say to me, you know, like I'm trying to understand kind of the world you've created and like what, because it seems like X, Y, or Z, and it's confusing to me, and I don't really necessarily care for that element of the game, or your rulings are vague, and if my response to that is just hostile to you, like, well, that's your problem, figure it out. That's how I like to run my game. Fuck off, right? Like it's like that's not fun. Like you should be, and when I look at a piece of work, and it's just frustrating to me that it's like I know Hollywood can make good movies. They obviously do. And so when it's like you're acting like I'm the one that's the problem, like, no, you're stupid. You don't know what you like.
Yeah.
This is good. This is good. It's like, no, it's not. And I don't want to be told that it is, because you don't know what you like, Matt. You just need to learn to like to play in my game that's overly crunchy, and where I don't like you're railroaded at every turn, and your character has no autonomy, and I don't ever want to hear you speaking in dialogue. Like you're stupid for wanting those things, right? But that's what D&D is. It's like, no, it's not. Not in my world. You're dumb. Get with the program or get the fuck out of here. You know, it's like I have no patience for that shit.
I agree. All right, folks. Well, there it was. There, you got to learn a lot about David here. But if any of you out there have any other questions for David, or if you want to just write in and say happy birthday, dude, send it to insidethegmstudio@gmail.com. Give us some topics to talk about. We want some content. We need some shit to talk about, and we want to talk about the shit that you want to hear. So send it in. Let us know. Or you can always come over and watch us, usually live, every Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern, on twitch.tv/InsideTheGMStudio, and over on YouTube as well, youtube.com/InsideTheGMStudio, I believe, or just go to YouTube, type in Inside the GM Studio, you'll be able to find it. Sunday, 9 p.m. Eastern. But for this week, for Inside the GM Studio, I've been your host, Matt.